So in this charity, if I have this property, this mobile home park, what's the best way to get the best benefit out of this mobile home park? How do I buy it? Does the charity buy it? And if so, one, the cool thing, here's the cool things that I like about it, right? Because I understand that the cash flow from that is going to be tax-free.
Yep.
And you guys will walk me through that, which is great. But what am I going to do with that cash? Because a lot of these people, right? We've got 170 people on here watching. People are going to go, okay, well, that's great. You got all this cash flow. The mobile home park cash flow is about $5,000 a month net after all like everything. Everything. It's about $5,000 a month net.
Mm-hmm.
So if the charity's bringing in $5,000, that goes into, let's say, a Bank of America account with the charity's name on it, right? So people always ask, where does that money go? They don't understand a charity can have an actual bank account, right?
Yeah, charity can invest it. You could put it into more real estate. You could put it into the stock market. You could buy.
What I plan on doing with it is what you guys taught me, which is what I call the Harbaugh Method, or the Jim Harbaugh Method, where I will now lend that money to my IUL that you guys also set up for me.
Yep. As long as you're doing it with a professional, and that's called a split dollar compensation plan. It's part of an overall program to make sure. And Jim Harbaugh does this, and I'll explain what an IUL is.
An IUL is essentially it's a brother or a sister to a whole life insurance policy. They're very, very similar. They just have a little bit of flexibility differences. I wouldn't get into IULs right now. Maybe we could have Greg Boots come in, Toby, so we don't get into the weeds on that. Greg Boots is Toby's partner. We'll have him come in and talk about IULs and whole life insurance policy on that.
Yeah. So when you're doing this, so I'll use Jim Harbaugh as an example. He's the Michigan football coach, and he's receiving a loan every year, which is not taxable income, of about $2 million that goes into his insurance policy that has like a $36 million death benefit. And what he's doing is he's saying, hey, I know that I'm going to eventually have to pay tax on that $2 million. But we're going to start the forgiveness after I retire, when I'm no longer in the highest tax brackets. And I don't need the money right now. So Michigan is a nonprofit. It pays no tax. So it's okay loaning the money out because it doesn't mean any difference. But if I loan money to PACE, I can't take a deduction. If I pay PACE something, then I can. And so they're using the fact that there's a charitable organization to their advantage. So when you're using a split dollar, you're doing the same thing. It would say like, hey, I'm going to do a compensation plan. Let's say PACE does this with his own charity, which you're allowed to do. You're allowed reasonable compensation. The analysis would go like this. How much would I have to pay PACE to be an executive with my organization? It's going to be a large amount, right? And PACE says, don't worry, I make too much money as it is. Don't pay me now. Let's put this into the future so that when I retire, you start paying me. And that's called a deferred compensation plan. And you're allowed to do that. So he would enter into a deferred compensation plan. And as part of that, he would say, but I need to fund this vehicle for the tax liabilities that are going to come up. So I'm going to loan money to fund this plan. An IUL is a fancy way of saying a tax-free bank account attached to an insurance policy. And that's going to grow, and there's no taxable event there.
Mm-hmm. So here's kind of the chain of this. So I buy a mobile home park, and number one, the cash flow from that mobile home park, because it's owned by the charity, that cash flow is tax-free, right? Which is really important as you guys are trying to build your wealth, is that the number one killer of wealth is tax. So if my charity is receiving that $5,000 a month net and I'm not, that means I'm not paying any tax on that. The charity now is accumulating $5,000 a month. So I can either go buy more property with that. I can then go do research and development. I could do 100 different things with that $5,000. However, I actually want to use that $5,000 for additional growth, and I want to have access to that money to maybe even buy a car if I really wanted to. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that $5,000, and my charity is going to lend that money to me. Okay. So that $5,000 is going to be borrowed by my IUL. So about $60,000 a year in cash flow will go into the IUL. That IUL will then compound growth. Let's say, what would you say, 4%?
IULs grow on, like, you're allowed to illustrate them at 7%. The average growth right now has been 13% on the S&P. So I would say that most IULs are, I would just say 7%.
Okay, 7%. Right now he's saying they're growing. He's seen some grow at 13, but he can illustrate it at 7% for legal reasons.
Right. They're growing, they're tied to the market. So you get usually 11 to 13% of the whatever the growth is in the S&P, and the S&P on the last 10 years is averaging 13%.
Love it. So now not only is my IUL receiving money, but it's compounding at 7% interest, which is cool. And it's growing. Now in my IUL, the one that Greg Boots set up, I can have access to my money in about 12 months to actually take out as a loan to my own business. Okay. So I could take that money out, and it's going to, this is what's cool about an IUL and a whole life insurance policy. Even though I borrow that money, that $60,000 will be left on the ledger balance, and it will, or however you want to describe that, and it will still continue to compound at 7%, even though I've borrowed against it. Now I'm going to take that $60,000 and I'm going to go lend that money to a fix and flipper, let's say at 14%. Right? I'm now going to be a hard money lender with my money. And that 14% now is compounding even faster, right? It's interest only at 14%. We even have lenders here locally. I have a guy that's now, it's really funny, Toby, like as you find out about these things, you run into guys that go, oh yeah, I'm doing that. Oh yeah, Anderson Business Advisor set mine up. Oh yeah, I'm doing that. I'm lending out at 18%, right? So now I have money. This is what's cool. One, I get tax-free cash flow at $5,000 a month because I'm holding that property in my charity. The charity is a nonprofit, so it doesn't. And what did you call that, Toby? A tax for real estate tax exclusion?
Oh, you could also apply for the county real estate taxes that are assessed on real estate. Nonprofits can move for exemption on that.
That's crazy. Do you guys hear that? He's saying you could move for an exemption to not pay property taxes because the property is owned by a nonprofit. That's crazy. Ooh, that I would love to learn more about that.
The only caveat that I would say on your structure is that when you have a loan to a individual who owns the IUL, so you own the policy, the loan is secured by that cash back. So you wouldn't be able to loan, like you wouldn't be able to loan the money, put it in the IUL and have that secured and still loan it out to a third party. I don't want to rain on your parade, but what's the best way to use this? If I'm going to pull that 60,000 out, is it better just to go fix and flip with that money? I don't think I'd be pulling that money out. Yeah. Oh, you mean like out of the charity? If I was going to loan money out of the charity?
No, out of the IUL. How can I use the money that's in my IUL?
You would have to make sure that you're funding it with your own dollars. You wouldn't use the money from the charity under that circumstance. Because if a charity loans you money, you have to secure it, and you're securing it with the cash value of the index universal life, usually. Now, if you have another piece of real estate, you could secure it with that, and then you don't have to worry about it. You're just using the money to fund an IUL. That's fine too.
So they just want to have something to securitize the loan. That's it.
That's it. So they want to make sure that if you're doing it like any reasonable lender would be. And so if the charity is going to loan you money, you just have to make sure that it comports. Every state's a little different.
What if the charity or the charity gets like a note and a deed of trust to secure the loan against the property?
Then it'll be fine. Yeah, then you're fine.
Okay,
then
cool.
Then all you're doing is, it's not really a split dollar because we're not loaning it to put it in the policy. You're just loaning the money. And
that's essentially what I'm doing. Yeah.
Yeah. And the other route, if you want to, like, again, everybody's different, but if I'm you, Pace,
yeah,
I don't want to earn money in my name.
No, I don't want to earn any money in my name.
Yeah. So what I'd probably do is have the corporation own the life insurance policy.
Yeah, that's what Greg Boots is doing for the IUL.
Yep. And then you could use that money and you could loan it out to third parties all day long. And then you're making 14, 15%
Yes.
in charity. So it never hits you.
Yeah. So the IUL is owned by a corporation.
Yep.
And that's why I can lend that money out to a third party.
Yeah. He has the charity owning it. It's called a COLI, or corporate owned life insurance. And that's even more potent because now we're not even worried about you as an employee. You can still have a deferred compensation plan, but the money's never leaving. And the reason is somebody like you, Pace, you just don't need any more income.
No.
It's just why compound an issue? If you never take money out of that charity, there's no taxable event, but you're entitled to take money out of the charity. And so I deal with this quite literally, guys, thousands of times. Everybody says when they're putting money in the charity, what if I need it? What if I need to get it out? Here's what I've learned after doing thousands of these. You're not going to need to get it out. Everybody worries about getting the money out of the charity. Nobody takes the money out of the charity. The reason being is if you needed to, you could put yourself on a salary. If you needed to, it could pay your regular business expenses. But I've not run across a single one where somebody actually needed to do that. And I'm talking, we've set up close to 4,000, it's actually more than 4,000 at this point. It's not going to happen. People that build wealth, you realize that, hey, what I live off of is so different than what I accumulate. And we always have this bigger idea of how much we need. We don't really need that much money. And usually with real estate, you have it flying at you from different places.
Right.
Now, wait, this is what's really cool. And you're going to see this. I know you mentioned Biden. Once something's in a charity, you don't own it anymore. Nobody can take it away from you. And it's not part of your estate. So there's no estate taxes. There's no probate. You literally just have your family members sitting on the board and they're entitled to compensation. But again, I have one client where we're in third generation. So his grandfather, his dad, and then son, and the son's now working for it. He just takes a salary. And the thing continues to compound. And it's pretty insane when you even watch 30 years of compounding. It's amazing when you don't pay tax on something, how big it gets.
It's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
True wealth.